On this back porch here, next to the pool, we're working on getting this thing all buttoned up. We've got these support posts here out of wood. We have 3 across the front here, 3 across the back. I've already wrapped the ones on the back and did 1 coat of paint on them. I still have to do another couple of coats of paint. But I'm gonna go ahead and move on to these front 3 and wrap them. Now all of these posts over here are just a single 4x4 post. This one I doubled up just because I wanted 1 post supporting this beam that's under here running across, and I wanted another post for this beam here that runs across. I always like to overdo things, so I just did 2 posts. I put them together. I used some of these Simpson strong ties to put them together. At the bottom where they're connected to our floor joists, also here in the middle and at the top. So they're not going anywhere, they're supporting this thing, but now we want to wrap them in some of this Hardie trim so we can paint them and they'll look nice like those 3 over there. What you're going to want to do for this is figure out what size post you have. Like I said, we're using 4x4 posts. So they're 3.5 by 3.5. So I'm going to start on this side here. I've got about 7 1/8 on this face of the post, these 2 together. I've got some of this Hardie trim. It's about 7 1/4. You could trim this down if you wanted to make it fit right there, that 7 1/8. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go ahead and just use that 7 1/4. I'm gonna split the difference, so I'll have about a 1/16 of an inch on either side. And I'm gonna do the same thing on this back side. I'm gonna put that 7 1/4 there, and we'll have about a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch overhanging. So that means when we go put our caps on either side of the Hardie trim, we're gonna trim them down to fit, but you're gonna have a little bit of a gap back here where it sits because these front and rear trim pieces aren't gonna sit flush with this. That's not a big deal. With this Hardie, it's super strong, it's thick. That's not gonna affect anything, and more than likely what I'll do is I'll put some liquid nails about 1/4 of an inch thick in some of these spots to take up some of that void, and that way we don't have just a long void space in there. But again, that's not necessary because these things are super thick and that's not going to affect anything. So we're going to measure this. We're going to go from the bottom here of our deck boards up to the top. We've got about 95.5, maybe 95 5/8. We're not going to cut it super tight. We're going to come off of this deck board just a little bit using a shim or another piece of board. That way it gives us a little bit of room for expansion and contraction. We're going to trim all this on the bottom anyway, so it doesn't matter even if you're a 1/2 an inch off. With that being said, we're going to cut this about 95 1/4. I've got my board laid out here. We're gonna measure it on out. You could take a pencil and mark this. I'm gonna just bring my blade over, or I'm gonna move the board to the blade. All right, that's 95. Let's see, we want 1/4. We can go 5/16, so it'll be fine. So we'll do 95 5/16. Like I said, this doesn't have to be 100% accurate. Just get it within a 1/2 an inch or so smaller than what you need. If you're too big, you can cut it again, so that don't matter neither. As you can see, we put this up here. I've got a little gap under here, probably a 3/8 of an inch gap. So when I shim the bottom of this up a little bit, it's going to reduce the gap on the top, and we'll have a small gap at the bottom. We also want to try our best to kind of have our overhang the same on the left and the right, if possible. Like I said, it's almost flush. All right, so now that we know our cut's good, let's find a couple of pieces of scrap wood down here, or an actual shim, which I think I'll just grab a shim, or I'll just use this. This might be too thick now. That's gonna be too thick. Let's grab a shim. I went to the shop, I grabbed a few shims. So I will go ahead and just put these shims under here. I'm gonna have this thing come up a little bit more. I made this a little tight at the top, so let's pull that out just a little bit. Because I don't want it tight at the top or bottom. I want some wiggle room. That looks good. So now we're gonna have to set up our air compressor with our nail gun. We'll pop some galvanized nails in here, and then we'll do the other side. As with most projects, you've got various fastening options. I like using these 2-inch 15 gauge electro galvanized finish nails. These work good. Once you put enough nails in here, and by the time you do your trim, we're also going to caulk everything. I mean, they're in there. They're good. So I wouldn't use screws like we did up here. This is really important because it's on the ceiling, of course. You don't want this shit falling on your head. On these columns, you know, there's nothing really. Gravity is working this way, not this way. Gravity works like this. No reason to use screws in this. Just use some damn nails. And they look like this. The worst part about nailing Hardie as opposed to wood is getting your pressure correct. If you have too little pressure, the nail won't go all the way through this hard stuff, and it'll bend on you, and it'll be a mess. And if you have the pressure too high, you'll shoot through it, and it won't really be holding it at all. So the biggest thing is getting your pressure correct. But I've found somewhere between 75 and 100, depending on what you're securing the Hardie to. You know, if you're going from Hardie on top of Hardie for like trim and things, you're gonna have to have your pressure set higher because it has to go through 2 layers of that hard ass cement Hardie board. But in this case, I'm gonna start off with about 75 PSI of pressure on my outlet side, and we'll see what that does. And then we'll adjust it and get it correct, and then we'll put them all in it. So let's turn this compressor on. All right, so our compressor now, the tank is full. We've got our pressure set around 85 PSI. I'm gonna start at the top because I can adjust as I move down a little bit. You still don't want it to be like super off, but so get it close and then really check your top. That's pretty good there. And then I'm gonna try this. All right, so as you can see, that nail didn't go all the way in. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to adjust the little dial on my air nail gun. Not sure if you can see it, but it says here that if you twist this to the left, it'll make your nails stick out some and not go flush in. And if you want your nails to be flush or countersunk, you go to the right. So I've got this all the way to where it'll shoot these nails in. So if you have adjusted this already and it's still not shooting all the way in, we're going to give it a little more pressure. All right, so yeah, we're on 75. Let's go up. Go to about 90. All right, we should be around 90 PSI now. And we'll do another shot right beside this one. I hate when it does that. I don't know why this thing does this a lot, but it'll shoot nothing but air and make a hole, and then the next shot will be a nail. Maybe. Maybe because I'm getting kind of low on these nails. Let's try it again. I think that one went in. All right, so let's go up a little bit. I always go about 12 inches or so in between, and I'll do one on each side. So let's see if we've got it here. All right, so that looks okay. It's a little bit deeper than I would like it to be in there. So I'm going to adjust my tooling here. A click. Let's try it on this side. A little better. Let's do one more click on our tool. Let's go up some. I still want it to be a little more flush. One more click on our tool. Go up to the top. I'm going to caulk all these holes in. I just want to make sure it holds well. If you're going too far in with your nail, you know, your nail is going to be, the head of your nail is going to be, you know, in the middle or even closer to the back here. And if your nail is way back here, it's only holding a little piece of material. You want it to be holding and stuck in a lot of this stuff. So I'm going to keep adjusting my machine as I go. Until we get that right pressure. Alright, so we're out of nails. Let's load up some more. Alright, so now our pressure is pretty much right because we have just a small indentation here before I see the nail head, and that's perfect. I mean, you only want it to go below the surface a 1/16, eighth of an inch, something like that. Get these shims out of here. little bastard. And as I'm doing this, I'll always run my hands over these and get that little waxy part that's on those nails off. And of course, if you have any nails that are sticking out, or like that one down there that misfired, I go ahead and grab a hammer and get those taken care of so I don't forget and have to come back to it. It's just as easy to go ahead and do it. So one like this that's in there almost all the way, you can just hammer in. It'll go in there. And then one like this at the bottom that's sticking out a bunch, you can just pull it out. Like that. That thing will come out. So there's the first one put up. Now we'll come over here and do the same thing on this side. We'll get us another board, we'll cut it, should be around the same measurement, and we'll put this one on. We have the second one cut for the back side here. Let's see how it fits. I've already got the shims down there at the bottom. Again, shim this thing up a little bit. Give yourself a little room at the bottom. Too tight. We're going to take some off of that. So, if you can't get it in like this, don't force it. The shit will break. It's strong, but it's also weak if you flex it and bend it. So, we're too tight. As I said, you can always take some off. We're going to take some more off. So let's get down here. And we'll just kind of take a little bit off there. So I took off probably ½ inch. Here we go. All right, so same as the other side. Get it all about even as far as your overhang over your post. Once you get it close, now that we have our pressure set for our gun, we should be able to go ahead and just pop these things in. That sucked. That went. Once you get 3 or 4 in, you don't have to hold it anymore. Sometimes you'll hit shit. I might have hit that. Yeah, I hit that plate that's up there. I thought I came down enough. I did with this one, not with that one. No big deal. Go down below it. Hit it. And as you're going down, you can tweak this thing a little bit. Make sure it hasn't moved on you. And they're all going in good now. I mean, that's what you want, about 1/8 of an inch or so into that board. I'm gonna come down here, get this thing about where I want it. it for the second one. I'm gonna get that off. Everything else drove in properly. Now we're gonna cut us some pieces to cap this and to cap this side. This is the one that misnailed up here. Let's get him out. And we'll just fill that hole in with caulk. We're gonna do that with all of these holes. Now we'll grab a tape measure. And depending on what kind of trim you're using, you may be able to find a trim that matches the width here that you need. In this case, I don't have that. I have to cut this down. So I'm gonna measure up here at the top. So we've got 5 5/16. And you don't want to be overhanging this too much. You'd rather be short, because we're going to use some corner trim to go across here to hide any of these seams, as we did over here. So we're going to use some corner pieces like this, and these will hide any of that. So if you're a little short on this one, it doesn't matter. If you're too long, it's not going to go on properly. It'll be sticking out on one side. But as with anything here, I'm gonna measure it top and bottom. So 5 5/16. And have 5 3/4 at the bottom. So you're gonna go, you wanna go with your shortest measurement. That just means we'll have a little bit of this board or that board, probably both, showing a little bit. That doesn't matter. You don't want to be too big. So we're gonna go with our shortest measurement. So we're gonna go 5 5/16. So we need to trim us a board 5 5/16. This is the middle pole, the middle column holding this porch and stuff up. This is gonna be done very similar to the way we're doing this double one. This one, that one are all single 4x4s, just like these were. But I want to try to keep them all looking the same and consistent. So with these, I went with the 7 1/4 board, because I knew I had to go 7 1/4 here because this is a double 4x4 put together. So I'm going to show you how I do that here with the single pole. I've got to add some fillers in on these two sides to make it wider, which I use a little piece of wood to go here that I attach with nails, and then I put my Hardie on top of that. But the process to get the front and back of these are exactly the same as we did here. We're gonna measure, we're gonna cut, we're gonna put a shim under here. The only difference is when we do this, we don't have the two posts to line up flush like we did over here. So here, what we're gonna have to do is have the same overhang on the left and the right. I'll show you how I get that. Now we have our front piece of Hardie on the column, or I guess the back and the front on. And as I was saying, there's gonna be a void space in here, because what we're gonna do is take another piece of this Hardie that we're gonna have to cut down. We're gonna trim it down width-wise. It's gonna fit across like this. So you'll have a void space in here. So you need something to go, even though this is strong, like I said, it's not gonna break with that void space in there, but the nails that we're using aren't gonna go through this and reach into this and hold it. So we need something to fill up that gap. So you can take a measurement to see whatever that gap is, and then figure out whether you need a 1x4, 2x4, or whatever thickness board you need, or if you have to double something up. In this case, I just went and got some 2x4 by 8 foot. I think these are 8 foot, 7 foot, something like that, 7.5. And they fit in here really good. There's gonna be just a small void space in there now, and that's perfectly fine. Once we put this cap piece on, the nails are gonna be able to go through and hit that 2x4 and hold that Hardie trim together. And like I said, we're gonna caulk all the joints and everything, and caulk holds a lot better than most people think. It'll hold, and especially the amount of caulk we're gonna be doing along this whole joint here, it's gonna hold really well. You don't want to just put this in here loosey-goosey. And we have a little bit of a gap at the top, so I'm going to kind of split the difference. Have a little at the bottom, a little at the top. And then we're going to take our nail gun, same nails we've been using for the Hardie. And I just go down. Now what I'll do is I'll go down through the middle, because when we put our Hardie trim on, we're going to do the same thing we did over here, where we put one on each side, left and right. So we'll be putting a nail here and here. So to try to avoid hitting these nails we already have in, we're going to go through the middle. And I'm going, 12 inches or so spacing. Not that big of a deal. This is just our backer. Do the same thing on this other side. Fit this thing in here. And you may have a board, like this one looks like it may be. No. Your 2x4 or whatever you're using may be a little bit twisted. So if it doesn't fit, great. Flip it around the other way. You may have to force it in here a little bit. In this case here, forcing it may not even work. May have to trim it down. But let's see. We got a hammer. If you don't feel like breaking out your table saw, which I don't, we can just try to tap this thing in. Now when I do this, it's going to be super tight. So I need to go ahead and put this thing up where I want it. Come on out of here. Give it some love taps. Let's speed this up a little bit. There she is. Now that we have these two on, we're ready to get our measurement on these side pieces, put them on. So that's what we're going to do now. Now that we have our front and our rear Hardie trim boards on, we have our 2x4 filler pieces on both sides. We can now put these side caps on of Hardie trim. Just as before, we're going to go ahead and cut these to length, and then we'll cut the width down if necessary. About 95 1/4. Again, you ain't got to be exact. You're going to be trimming all this stuff out with more trim. So 95 1/2. Let's go cut that. So 95 1/2. Mark it on that side. And I'll mark 95 1/2 on this side. I'll just use my tape measure here to draw me a line straight across. Now we're going to cut it here. So what you want to do, of course, when you cut this, if you cut it the way it is right here, this piece is going to fall, that piece will be up, which is fine because that's your good piece. But I always save these scraps for other projects later on. So we'll slide this down on these sawhorses to where you're going to have 2 sawhorses supporting one side, 2 sawhorses supporting the other side. And also make sure that line's not in the middle of a sawhorse, you'll cut into it and start tearing up your sawhorses. I'm going to get the grinder out with the blade and we'll make that cut. We have our grinder, we have our extension cord. Again, before you plug this grinder in or any power equipment, make sure that it is off. This thing is off. If you have it on when you plug it in, it'll have power and it'll start rotating and that blade will spin and it can hurt you. Now what we want to do is cut this just like this. Clean off a little bit of that residual that's sitting there, and you're good to go. I always unplug stuff like this when I'm done with it, if I know I'm not going to use it in the next few minutes, so the kids don't grab a hold of it. Now that we have it cut lengthwise, we're now going to worry about cutting this thing widthwise. If you have to. Sometimes it'll line up just right. Sometimes you have to cut some off. I believe we'll have to cut some off. So let's get that measurement. We'll measure the top. 5 1/8. Measure the bottom. 5 1/2. So I'll go a little bit less than 5 1/8 there. 5 1/2 at the bottom. And we'll make this cut. Again, it ain't gonna be perfect. We're gonna be trimming the corners out. So with 5 1/8, I'm gonna go a little bit shorter than that. I'm gonna make this 5 inches. I'll go down a little bit. Do another 5 inches. We'll come down to the end. It's already a little less than 5 1/2. So I might shave just a little bit and shave 1/8 of an inch off of that.
That did not hurt you. It's okay.
Same thing here. Go down a little bit more. And here. Then we'll draw us a straight line across there. It won't be a straight line. It'll be an angled line. It won't be curved. It'll be angled. It'll be an angle down from here to there. So we're taking off about 1/2 of an inch there to about 1/8 of an inch down here on this end. And we're just going to use this board that we just got done cutting. We'll use the other half. You can use a T-square. I've got a T-square inside. I don't want to go grab it when I got this right here. And again, we don't have to have this perfect. We just want it close. You want it probably within 1/4 of an inch smaller. Yeah, you might be able to get away with 1/2 an inch smaller. You don't want it to be bigger because then you're gonna have a gap when you put your little corner trim on. So err on the side of being smaller. I'm just marking this a line to kind of go by. And then we'll test fit it. May have to come shave a little more off. May get it right the first shot. Only time will tell. So we're going to use our grinder again. So you want to pull this off of your sawhorses so you don't cut into your sawhorses. It'll still support them. Let's plug this back up. It's off. I think that looks good. And then just remember which side is which, top and bottom. This is the bigger side, it goes on the bottom. See how well this worked out. We're pretty good everywhere. Got a little bit right here that's sticking out. I'm gonna want to cut that off. So I'm gonna grab my pencil. We're gonna mark that. And trim a little bit off, about a blade width or so, 1/8 of an inch. And once we trim that off, it'll fit in there the way I want it to. And then we'll nail it in place. Get it back in place, get it lined up, and what you can do is just take your pencil, lay it across here, and draw a line, and that'll show you what you need to take off, and it'll show you where to take it off. So when you flip it around, you should have a pencil mark about like that. So that's what we're going to take off. Once that's off, we should be in good shape. Set this back up the same way, hanging over your sawhorses where you're going to be making your cuts. Check to make sure the tool is not on. Plug your tool up. And we'll make these little additional cuts. Okay, so we cut off the left side here. That's where our mark was on this left side. So let's line everything back up. See how close we are. As long as we're not overhanging, we're good. We can be flush, we can be a little bit under. That looks pretty damn good. All right, so I like that. So we're gonna shim the bottom up the same way we did the other sides. And then I'll show you the trim that's gonna cover this and why this is okay. My phone stopped recording on this last one that I was doing, but I just went down and used the nail gun as we did on the other ones, about 12 inches or so apart, 2 by 2. But I'll show you on this side. I've already cut this, I've already checked it, and we're good. We got a little shim on the bottom. A shim can be anything. I think the dogs ran off with those wooden shims I had out here the other day. So I'm just using a piece of thin board that I've cut off. Now again, we're gonna just line this up where we are at least flush, if not less than our sides. And we're shimmed off the floor a little bit. And we're gonna start up here. Get about halfway, check, make sure you're still going right. Go ahead and pull that shim out. the beginning wrap that will eventually look like those three there. What we have here so far is we have this and this. Now we're going to add all this top trim and junk all around it to make it look fancy and to hide our seams and joints a little bit. We're going to go ahead and do this one, this post here, this column, the same way as we did the one in the middle. So I'll get that done, and then when we get that done, we'll start looking at how we do all the extra trim around the top and the bottom and on the corners. So now that we have all three of these columns wrapped initially, all three wrapped, we're now going to start working on all the trim that goes around these. I've started on this outside one here already. Still got a lot more to do on, but we're going to go ahead and show you how to do this process on this middle one here. This will be our video subject here. What we're going to do first is we want all these to look the same. You don't want to just haphazardly cut this stuff. So I looked at these here the way we did them. And we have the side pieces overlapping the front and the back pieces. So the first thing we're going to do is measure our front and back pieces, and then we'll get the measurement on our side pieces and let them overlap and overhang. So with that being said, we're going to measure right up here. Grab a tape measure. And the front and the rear should be pretty similar. So we're going to measure from outside edge to outside edge. I've got 8 7/8. I'll check the other side. And it's right under 8 7/8. Not even let's do that again. Alright, so we're going to measure here. I have 8 7/8. We'll measure on this back side, or this front side, 8 7/8. And again, we're measuring the total across here, including these side pieces, all the way across, 8 7/8. What we're going to use is all the scrap pieces. I like to reuse scrap where I can because this stuff's expensive. So the pieces that we cut off of these boards here, we're going to use those and cut them and use them for this trim up here. So 8 7/8. Let's cut 2 pieces of 8 7/8. So we'll get down here to the saw. We'll cut us a couple of these. You've seen me cut this with a 4.5 inch side angle grinder and a stone blade when I was cutting the ceiling and when I was cutting these down. But I also have this miter saw It's a compound miter saw, and I have a blade specific to cut Hardie. You don't want to cut it with a wood blade, the stuff's concrete, so you want to use a Hardie blade. Like I said, there's various methods to cutting this material. This is just what I use. Now these boards that we've got here, they're 7 1/4 on the width. They are right at, they're pretty much 3/4 of an inch thick. I can't remember the length. I think they're 144 inches long. But these are what we're using to put at the top and the bottom of these. Now that we have them cut, always test fit first. And you want them to be flush on the sides as much as you can. It may not be perfect, but you want to get them pretty close because you'll be able to see it. These aren't going to be covered on the ends with any kind of trim. So that one looks fine. And you know, come off your ceiling just a little bit. Don't push them dead up against your ceiling. You know, when you can leave room, you know, a 1/16 or 1/8 of an inch for movement, expansion, contraction, all that stuff. You want to try to do that when you can. We'll check this front side. That one feels good as well. We'll get the air compressor fired up and we'll be able to go ahead and shoot our nails through here. And remember, our pressure for shooting Hardie through Hardie is going to be around 110. To make it easier, I've got a little 2-step step stool. You can use a ladder. If your columns aren't that tall, you can just do it by standing. So just whatever you need. So I'm going to step up here. And I'm going to get this one in place. And then we're going to drop some nails through it. If you have it lined up, you can throw some nails in it. I'll put 5 nails in this. I'll go in the corners. Increase my pressure just a little bit. If you see that your first or second nail doesn't go flush where you want it, go ahead and stop. Increase your pressure. And you see where I'm going? I'm not going directly in the corners. I'm coming off 2.5 inches or so. That way I'm hitting into this main board. You don't want to be hitting into your side boards. These will split. That's a little better. And of course you can still adjust on your nail gun. So I'm going to adjust it a little bit, see if it'll shoot these in a little bit further. Alright, those are the 4 on the outside. I'll do one right in the middle. Perfect. And what I'll go ahead and do, if I have any nails that are sticking out a little bit, so I don't forget, I'll go ahead and take a hammer. Pop them in there where they're flush. Just be careful when you hit this stuff with a hammer because you can damage it. You can put a a divot in it if you hit it too hard with your hammer, so don't go crazy. Try to hit it flat if possible. If you hit it on the edge of your hammer, you're going to put a little dent in it. Not a big deal, it just doesn't look as good. So there's the back side put on. We'll flip around to this front side. And do the same exact thing. Get it all lined up. Five more nails. I'll wipe away that little waxy junk they use to put on these nails, that vinyl junk. So that's the front and the rear. Now we're going to measure our sides. That really should have came up some more. This one should. I might have to redo that. Yeah, we might be okay. It just looks a little bit off from here. Anyway, I've got 6 5/8. I'm a 1/16 of an inch bigger at the top. I'm gonna go with my bigger measurement. I'm really like 6 3/4. So I'm gonna cut it 6 3/4, and I'll put it up there and I'll mark it and we'll trim it where it needs to be. I see a little bit of an issue I have here, but that 6 3/4 works out pretty good. This board is down lower than I have on the front side, and that's just because the ceiling board here is a little higher than this trim piece here on the existing porch that we had. So I'm actually going to pull this off, and I'm going to bring it up where it'll be flush with this. So I'm going to pull that off. Little mistakes like this happen. Not a big deal. Go ahead and correct it. Don't roll with it, because then everything else will start to be off. Let me grab my little pry tool. So I just have a little pry tool I'll try to use to get under here. Let's see here. If you can't tell, this stuff is pretty strong. The nails. I'll just hammer this underneath there. Hit it a few times. There we go. Let's see what we can do. Okay. Now that's out of there. Now you probably won't be able to reuse this piece. I won't have enough scrap. I'm not worried about reusing it. So I'm going to cut another one. I'm going to just measure this one again. 8 7/8. There's 8 7/8. I'm now going to make sure that the top of this board is even with the top of this sideboard here. That way when we put our side piece on, we won't have any hanging off the bottom. If you have another pair of hands, you can have somebody hold this while you take the one we just cut and stick it on the side and make sure that you're in the right position. But I'm pretty confident that if I just line that side up and this side up, that we will be in good shape. Yeah, I like that better. Yeah, we're even there, we're good. Alright, so this is another one. This one should be good. So let's put it back up here. We all make mistakes. Some more than others. Everybody makes them. I sound like Bob Ross painting a damn picture now or something. Alright, 5 more nails. Alright, I think that's going to be better. That didn't take as much time to do, but to get it a little closer to being correct. Let's find the piece that we cut a few minutes ago. Hell, I hope this is it. It looks like it. So now when we line our bottom and top up, we should be, yeah, there it is. Now we don't have that that backside hanging down like we did earlier. So that is correct here. That's perfect. That's what we wanted all along. That way the other trim that we put on the bottom of this is going to line up. You won't have a big gap. Same thing on this side. Yeah, 6 3/4 will work there as well. What do we have left here? We can cut another little piece off of this one. Six 3/4 it is. Let's see here. Let's get it. Cooperate, Mr. Tape Measure. All right. We'll stick this one on here and test fit it. I like that, I like that. Yep, that looks good. We'll throw 5 more nails in this one. Very nice. There's 5. So that's what the beginning of the top of our trim around our columns is going to look like. Just like that. Now on the bottom, down here, you're going to do the same thing you did at the top. Exactly the same. Just make sure that you do it the same way. Your front and your back, these longer sides, we're going to put first all the way from left to right, and then we're going to cap them with the sides like that. And you don't have to do it that way, you can do it the other way. Just make sure whatever way you do it the same way every time. Some people will take into account the most visible part. So if you're one of those people that go, okay, well, I'm going to be sitting here and this is more visible than the sides, then do it the other way. Put your sides on and then run your front and your back to overlap. That way you don't see your joint or your seam. You can do it that way. Just depends on your porch setup and those kinds of things. I don't really mind it so much, but like I said, you can do it that way. You can have the most visible part not having as many seams looking at you. We do that with granite and backsplashes and things like that. It's something I work for. So you can do that in this application as well if you want to. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the 4 pieces and get them nailed into the bottom like we did over here. And then after we get those on, I'm going to show you how we do these corner strips. Those we don't nail on, we use an adhesive for those. So let's go ahead and get that done and then we'll come back and take a look. The bottom of that one is now on. Looks just like the top. Do the bottom like you do the top. Same way. Now we're going to put our corner pieces on. And as I said, these are going to go on with an adhesive. These are fairly easy, as is most of this. So this is a small piece. I've got to get bigger pieces and cut them. But these are just corner trim. And they're going to go on the corner here. Like this. But like I said, I'm going to go grab some big ones and cut them down to fit to go all the way up. You just want to take a measurement from the top of the trim you just put on the bottom to the top of the trim up here at the top. A little under 81 inches, and these you want to be, pretty tight. You can give a little bit of wiggle, 1/16 of an inch or so. I'm using PVC. because it's, of course, weather resistant, pretty much weatherproof. And none of this is structural that we're doing here. This is just decorative and finishing touches. But I like using PVC on this kind of stuff. Easy to work with, easy to cut. You can cut it with damn near anything. I'm going to keep my Hardie blade on here when I cut this. It'll cut through it. It does chip it just a little bit, so I mean you can switch to like a fine tooth blade or something that's made to cut PVC, and you might get a better cut, but it's done okay for me so far. Let's go over to 81. Maybe 80 and 15/16. I think that'll be good. And we cut it. As with all of this, after you cut, dry fit. And tight. You don't want it tight because it'll bend. You might be able to force it in there, but it's going to bend your PVC and it's not going to look good at all. So if that happens and you're a little bit big, just take a little bit off. Test it again. That fits in there good. So there's our first one. What I like to do is go ahead and cut all 4 of these, and that way when I'm using my adhesive, I can run my bead on it, stick it on, grab the next one, run my bead, stick it on. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut the other 3 for this. They all should be very similar in length, but you still want to measure each individual one. Always do that. This one here is about 80. Actually, that one's a little bit tight. See how it's touching at the top? And it sits there and has a bow in the middle. I'm gonna take a little bit off of that. That's what I meant by if you're too tight, it'll bow out a little bit, and then it'll be a little bit harder for you to get that adhesive to stick and hold it in place while it dries. You don't want none of that, so let's cut some off. So when you stick it on here, or when you dry fit it on here, it shouldn't just stay there. That means you got it too tight. It should want to fall off like that. So there's number 2. Let's get us 2 more. All right, so we have all 4 of our trim pieces here for our corner. Now we need a caulk gun. It's somewhere around here. There it is. So I still have a tube in here from yesterday when I was doing that first column. So I'm going to finish using it up and I'll grab a new tube. It's got some of the old material in here that's dried, so I'll cut some off my tip, exposing the fresh new material. And all you have to do is right here in this corner, you're going to run a bead. Doesn't have to be too thick, because if it's too thick and you go to squish this on, it's going to squish out the sides. And then you got a mess to clean up. This stuff is not easy to clean up. This isn't like regular caulk. This is actually liquid nails, fuse it all surface. Really good, it'll hold it and it won't ever come off, but it's hard to clean up. So all I'm gonna do is start at the top. I'm gonna squeeze a bead coming down. Just filling up that corner. And this shit wants to keep coming out of the tube, so find you a little place, like a scrap piece of board or something you can lay your caulk gun on, because that crap keeps coming out for some damn reason. You don't want it to get on everything because it's hard to come off. Okay, so that's the bead that you want, just in there like that. And then we'll start at the bottom and just put this thing back on the way we had it when we dry fitted it. And mush it down from top to bottom. Just make sure that you get it on here, just like that. And then you want to check and make sure you don't have any squishing out. I got a little bit right here at the top. Just take my finger, get that off of there, just like that. You still may have some squish out. It's not the end of the world. Boom. All right, so we're gonna do the same thing on all 4 of these. Run your bead on there, smack it on the corner. Let's get it. After we have this top piece up here done, the next thing we're going to do is install these flat trim pieces that you see here, and then down here at the bottom, right down there. I've already done this one, but I'll show you the process on this middle one that we're going to do. Dang. These are super easy. Nothing to these at all. We put these around. That way it kind of, kind of mimics this right here. As you can see here, it kind of makes that go all the way around. And we have more trim that's going up here, so on and so forth. But let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so for this, all you really need is a tape measure and a pencil, and of course, the trim that you're using. I'm using this flat, thin trim right here. This trim measures about 1.5 inches wide, and it's about 1/4 inch thick. So that's what we're using. And these, we're gonna cut them flat. No funny business with these. Nothing funny going on here. So the way I do it is we're gonna measure in between these two corner pieces that we've already installed. I get about 7 1/16. What I like to do on these, because there's more trim going on top of them that's gonna be nailed into it, I typically don't nail these in. It's just extra nails and an extra step. So I make sure that these are tight. That way it fits in here and it just holds up. Like all of those over there, except for the one that I cut a little bit too short. None of those over on this first column over here. None of those, as you can see, none of those have nails in them. They're just held in with that pressure. So again, 7 1/16. I'm gonna cut it about 7 1/8, and we'll see how tight we are, and we'll trim a little bit off to where it fits in there the way we need it to. So I mark my piece 7 1/8. And I cut him. I just test fit him in here, and that worked out really good. So see, it's held in there just with the pressure. And then when we have the other trim that goes on top, it'll get nails in it that will go through the top piece of trim, that second piece of trim, and into the Hardie, and it'll all be secured. That's all you have to do. This is an easy step. Let's do this next one right here. 3 3/16. That one goes in the same way. The bottom's the same, the other two sides are the same. Just cut them, like I said, cut them a little big and get them to where they fit in there. If you cut one a little bit too small in length, like I did here, you can always pop a couple of nails in it to hold it up. So it's not a big deal, but I just like doing it this way so I don't have to use any more nails. And because also when you go to nail your other trim in, if you hit one of those nails that you already have in there, it's gonna bend that next nail and you gotta pull it out, and it's kind of a pain in the ass. So I will go ahead and do these other two columns with these trim pieces like I did over here, and then we'll hit the next piece of trim. I've done the first one here with these extra trim pieces around here and on the bottom. Right down here. Shit. Right down here on the bottom. So now we're gonna do this center one. This is the one I've been showing y'all while I'm working on. So we've got all that up there. We've got our side pieces on. These are the pieces that we had just cut and put in place here. They're gonna be underneath this next piece of trim that we're putting on. So this next piece of trim that I'm using, of course, use whatever the hell you want. But this is what I'm using here. And I don't know the name for all this crap. I mean, they've got names, you know, a base cap and this and that. I just know that this is something that I bought when I did the other ones and used it, so I keep buying it to get all these to look the same. So this is what we're using. Now we're also cutting these on that 45-degree angle. And again, we're not cutting them like this. We're cutting them the short side on the back. So every time that we make a new cut to start, we're gonna cut this little piece right here off. As with any of this stuff, the first step is taking a measurement. And on these, you measure across the top here or the bottom, wherever you want to start. And you measure from end to end. So here I have 9 3/8. So we'll cut a piece 9 3/8. So we have our saw, which is usually sitting up like this. We have it tilted over to that 45-degree angle. Tighten back down. As I said, make this first cut, cutting this junk right here off. You should cut it off right there. That way you don't waste material. So now that we have our first cut, with the short side being on the back, long side being on the decorative part, we're gonna make our mark. Nine 3/8. We'll make a mark on the back side. And since we just made this cut, you could always flip this piece around and if you have I guess a double compound miter saw, you could flip this to the other side, but all I'm gonna do is flip this piece that we're cutting this trim from decorative side up to decorative side down, place it up against the fence, get my line lined up. And of course, I'm gonna cut it a little bit big, I always do. Just like that. So now you have decorative has 2 longs, the back has the 2 short pieces, and that's that. Now we're going to test fit it. These I like to go ahead and cut my 4 pieces and test fit them as I go because they can be a little finicky. So what I'm doing here on this trim, you got a large part on the bottom, the base, and then a little short piece on top. If you want to do it like that, you can. I think it looks gay. I'm gonna flip it this way with the big piece up on top, small piece on the bottom. I'm gonna get myself close, and that feels pretty close, but like I said, I'm not gonna stick these yet, I'm not gonna nail them. I want to get a couple more cut and get these things lined up good. So I'll go ahead and measure a side. I'm at 5 1/2. I'm gonna cut me another one, 5 1/2. First cut. one's pretty close, but I'm still leaving these pieces a little bit big. So what I do here is I start working around. I'll put this one up. I'll put the side one up. I'll get them where they meet pretty good right there in the middle and there's not a gap. And then I'll feel. This side still feels pretty good. This side over here I'm going to cut a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and cut this other side piece. Make sure that this length is good, then I can nail this one off. So this side here is going to be 5 5/8. Make my first cut to cut away that wrong angle on my trim. And then I mark out 5 5/8 on the back side of my trim. I flip my trim piece with the back side facing up. Line my blade up. And I make a cut. I'm a good bit big on that one, but again, that doesn't matter for what we're fixing to do. We're not using adhesive on these. We're just using nails. Slide him over, line him up. On the sides, I just use 2 because these are shorter. 2 nails will hold that guy in place. I know this one is way big. I'm going to go ahead and cut a good bit off of this one. And I'm not sure if I've said anything yet about the pressure that we're using going through 2 pieces of the PVC and into the Hardie, but we have our air compressor set around 76 PSI. So if you get the idea what we're doing here, put our long piece on, make sure it seams up nice to this piece we just nailed. It does. Come in here and put this one, and as you can see, this piece here on the side is way too long. It's not going to work. This piece feels like it's pretty good, like it might be the right length. So we'll cut a decent amount off of this one, about a 1/4 inch maybe. Same thing, up and down until we get this where we want it. This one's still, the side piece is still a little too big. There we go. Now that matches up great. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to nail these in place now. Again, on these long sides, I'm going to put 3 nails. 1, 2, 3. Ha, ha, ha. All right, so there's 3 on that one. Come to this side. This should still line up, match up. Yes, perfect. 2 nails. That holds all that down. All right. So there it is. There's that wrapped around there. And don't worry about all that shit being dirty. Like I said, half this stuff has been out in the yard. I work a bunch, so I get to these projects when I have time, mainly on the weekends, if I'm not cutting grass and doing other stuff. So the shit's dirty. I'm gonna wipe it all down with soapy water before I start caulking and before I paint. But that's what it'll look like there. Next step is gonna be doing the same thing on the bottom, but we're gonna flip the piece where the base, the big part, is on the bottom of this ledge right here, like we did over here. So up on the top, we went with the skinny part on the bottom, big part up here, up against our Hardie. On the bottom, we're doing it the opposite. It's gonna be, I mean, it's the same because it's the big part of your trim on your Hardie. That's what we're gonna do. And we do it the same way we did the top, working our way around as we go. Let's get this thing down here some. Tape measure. Measure side to side. 9.5. Our first cut, gonna be cutting off that angle that we're not using. just like that. We measure over 9.5. We take our piece, we just cut it with the face up. Now we're going to go face down. Get our line where we need it. Hold it up against our fence. Make our cut. Like I said, up top, we were this way. Down at the bottom, we're gonna be this way, resting right there. And that thing there is a good bit too big. I'm going to take some off of that because I know it's way too big. That's better. Now a measurement on this side. Five and 7/8. We'll cut this about 6 inches. He'll go there. He'll go there. Now we measure this opposite side, this small short side. 5 3/4. This way we can check this. All right, so we need to take a little bit off of this one because we're not sitting correct on that other side. And remember, right now we're just using these side pieces to get this front piece right here cut to the correct length. And that looks really good right there. So using my left hand, I'm going to hang on to it. Again, 3 nails. Poof, poof, poof. So now that's in, and we can use that to check all the way around what we got going on. So I'm going to go ahead and complete this one. And then go ahead and do the top and bottom of that end column there. And then we got one more piece of trim to put around the very bottom. And then we're going to be ready for caulk and then paint. Here we are with that center column. We have all of our trim up top done. We have the bottom piece of trim there. I went ahead and did this first column here with the base trim across the very bottom down here. So we're going to walk through doing that on this one. You're going to do it pretty much the same way you did this trim here. It's just this is going to go at the very bottom. We're going to measure these the same way we did these. We're going to measure at least 2 of them to begin with, probably 3. So 10 5/8, short side to short side. And on this, I'm using this trim right here, which is the same trim that we use at the very top up underneath our little ledge. It's just we're going to be turning this with the fat part down instead of the fat part up. But this is the trim. It's just a decorative trim, back side, front side. First cut, is our getting the angle right cut. And we flip it over. This is where we're going to do our measurement of 10 5/8. Now we're going to cut on that line, or a little over that line, make it a little bigger. So you're going to have something that looks like that. Damn, I made it way bigger. So it's going to sit down like this with the other ones that wrap around it. I'm going to take a little bit more off of this one because I do know it is bigger than I want. Something like that. I'll measure this short side here. 7 1/4. So I'm going to show you, we're cutting this the same way we did the other ones. That's the incorrect angle. So we're first going to cut off that incorrect angle that we don't need. Like that. Now we flip it. I done forgot my damn measurements. 7 1/4. So on the back side, we're going to measure short side to short side. 7 1/4. We're going to cut this with the back facing up, just like we marked it. This shit's been in the shop and damn dirt daubers have been making nests on it. We'll just test fit this up here. It's plenty big. Take a little more off. All right. Let's focus back over here on the bottom of this thing. Now on these, same way we did the Hardie at the very bottom, in regards to not wanting this to sit completely down on it. So I just got a little, you can use a regular shim, it's a little piece of that damn PVC vinyl. Stick it under there to give it about a 1/16 up off. And that's where we're going to be sitting. Something like that. Let's take a measurement on this side. Right at 7 inches. Make our first cut. Turn it over. Mark it 7 inches. Cut it just like we marked it on the back. Just like this. Now remember, the first thing we're going to be trying to do is just get this this front piece where it's supposed to be and installed. So these sides can be longer for right now. We're just trying to get this first one where it's supposed to be. So in order to do that, well, actually, what you may have sometimes is I have a side over here that sits up a little bit higher than what this front is going to sit up. So I've got to bring this up a little bit more. Let me see if I can show you. So when this sits a little bit off of there, and I bring this over, my side is sitting up higher here. You can't bring this down any, really. I mean, there's ways you could do it, but we're not going to do that. We're going to put this one up a little bit off of the decking, and then this one is going to come up to meet that one. I did the same thing over there on that side. So we're going to start with this side, getting it up where it needs to be, and then we'll start pulling. We're going to dry fit all of these before we nail anything down. So now that we know that this side is high, we're going to put our shim under here to put this up off of that flooring, that decking, about 1/16 of an inch. So this one needs to come off. Let's trim some off of this. A little bit more. That feels pretty good right there. I made another little piece of shim to go on the other side. Let's see if I got one. If not, I can make one. I got some more little bits and pieces around here. There's another one right here. Something like that. I want to make sure this piece is level as well. So what I can do to make sure that we're going to be level, just because I've got these two boards, this is where the old deck met the new deck that we added on to. So we have kind of a hump up here and then back down a little bit. I tried to kind of avoid that, but it was hard with the existing brick that's under here for the main house, and then with the addition we added on and everything. So anyway, we're going to get this right by measuring down. So we want to be right there. So I'm just going to measure from the top of this down to that line, which is 5.5. Do the same thing on this side. 5.5. So now we know that when we put this up, that this piece needs to be here for us to be level. So that's where we need to be. So that little shim's not going to work. I'm going to need something a little bit bigger. Not that goddamn big though. A pencil on that shim may work okay. Maybe just the pencil. Yeah, I like that. That works. So now we know where that needs to be. Right there. So based on that, we'll know where these front and rear pieces need to go. I haven't cut one for this rear yet. I'm gonna go ahead and cut that. Ten and 5/8 ish. Let's see here. Give me my damn pencil back. So 10 and 5/8. Let's make this cut. So then this piece here also is going to come up off that decking a little. That looks good. Let's get this. Oh yeah, it looks good. Just like that. Just watch you bleed. Let's sling this thing over here. All right, we didn't move. Last piece on the bottom of this one. All right. So that is the finished part across the bottom. Really, that's the finished trim that I'm doing anyway on these columns to where they'll look like this. Keep in mind, it's just one coat of paint. I still need to put 2 more coats on it. So now I'll finish up this last column with the bottom part, and then we'll start caulking all of our nail holes and all of our little joints up and get ready for painting. So once you've washed this column down with water and you've gotten all your nails, you know, a little bit countersunk like they need to be, and it's dry, now we can caulk all the holes and the gaps up like we did on the other 2 and get ready for paint. You may need a ladder or a step stool to reach some of these spots, especially if your columns are higher than these. This is not probably 8 foot, so I don't need a big ladder. And I like to start at the top, work my way down. So we'll start up here. And up here, there's a bigger gap just because this ceiling on this addition sits up higher than this trim piece right here does. So there's not a big gap on one side, and I'll show you. So the gap over here isn't very big, but then the gap over there is larger. What we're going to do there is if you just caulk that large gap, depending on the caulk that you use, most caulks will not fill that gap up. It'll shrink and it'll crack, and you have to do it a few more times. You could probably caulk it 2 or 3 times over the course of a couple of days and fill it in. But what I like to do and what they recommend you do if you have like a bigger than a 1/4 inch gap is use a piece of backer. I think they make backer rods that are made for that. But what I do is I'll just take a piece of scrap Hardie trim that we have over here. And I'll cut it. So I'll just take a piece of this scrap that I've got, and I know about what size I need, about what size that gap is, and I'll just cut me a piece off. You don't have to be exact. You just want something for that caulk to stick to in there. Something like that. Just a piece of trim. You can use wood or whatever else that you've got, scraps sitting around. And now we'll go back over here. And then now this piece, see, I cut it a little bit too thick. So I'm gonna take a little bit off of this with my saw. Actually, I'm gonna just cut another piece because it's hard to cut a piece that small. So let's cut another piece. All right, so once you have your piece, it's going to go up here like this inside here. Now what I've got going on here is I have some of that liquid nails that I used up here to stick these top trim pieces. So this piece won't go in because it's hitting that liquid nails. So you can just break this into smaller pieces and stuff it in between where that liquid nails is at. And that just gives your caulk something to stick to. So it's not so far back there. And we'll do that all the way around where we have this large gap. Doesn't have to be pretty because it's going to be covered up with that white caulk. You're just stuffing something in here to take up that gap. Once you caulk it, it won't move or go anywhere. It'll be right here. I'm going to cut one more for this side, maybe one more for this little piece over here. You want your pieces to sit at least flush, if not pushed back a little bit from the trim. And then you caulk it in and you won't be able to see any of that stuff. Let's go to the other side over here. This is the only place we're going to have to do this. Everything else is got a small enough gap to where just caulking it will be sufficient. You may have to play around with it just a little bit to get your pieces to fit where they need to go. There we go. Just something in there for this stuff to stick to. And we did the same thing on the other side, or on the other two columns. Stuffed a little bit of this Hardie trim in there. And those worked out okay. That looks good. Now that little and excuse me. Let me start again. And that is a step you may not have to do depending on the gaps that you have. It may be a step you may need to do somewhere else if you have a larger gap. Now, when it comes to caulk, there's 100 different types of caulk that you can use. Probably more than that. This is let me see here. Yep. So when it comes to caulk, there's a bunch of different caulks you can use. I'm using this DAP Alex Flex. It is for exterior use. It's a 60-year caulk. You can paint it in 30 minutes, all these different things, but it's interior, exterior, crown molding, doors, trim. This is a pretty good caulk. I don't remember the cost on it, maybe $5 or $6 a tube, which isn't cheap, but you don't want to go cheap with the caulk because you want this stuff to last for hopefully ever, especially once you paint over it. So get a good caulk. I'm using white, even though we're going to paint it. Just make sure whatever caulk you get is paintable. There are some caulks, especially silicones, that are not paintable. So get something that's paintable, and we're gonna caulk. Yeah, baby.
Nothing.
I'm making a YouTube video.
Have you made any videos with just the doggies in it?
I posted that one where Grayson and Casper were fighting each other the other day.
Yeah.
And I posted your talkie challenge.
Yeah, and the one where Marlena when she was a baby when you just got her, and the one where
Yeah.
she was fighting with the dog.
Out the other day at the pond? Yes.
Yeah. I think that was at our old house, was it?
No, the pond. No, we only have the pond here.
Oh, so we've had this house for a really long time.
We've been here almost 3 years.
That's a long time.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
when are you going to be done with your video?
Well, I can't finish it until you get out of here so I can keep doing it. But just a little bit, probably 10 minutes. Then I'm going to start caulking all of this. I'm just showing everybody on YouTube how I caulk the columns. You want to watch me while I do it? Okay. So this is a tube of caulk that I use for the other columns. So, yes.
Have you got any of the doggies in the background
Mm-hmm.
videos?
Yeah, they get in the background sometimes.
Do we have any comments on our videos?
Not on any of the doggies or any of you. I've got some on the cars. Like, hey, nice car. Like TK's burnout video and some of those. So this is the caulk that I'm using. I used it on the other columns already. I've been through a couple of tubes. This one is about 3/4 of the way gone, but I'm going to use it up. So since I've already used this, of course, this part inside the tip is going to be dry. So what I'll do is I'll just come and cut some more off of it, hopefully exposing some of the caulk that isn't dry. Let's see if it comes out of here. For now, yeah. All right, so once you have your caulk cut, your caulk tube cut, I'm going to start up here at the top. I'm going to squish this caulk on the bottom, on the top, and in the middle of those little trim pieces that I've put up there. Don't use too much caulk because it can get messy. And also what I would recommend having on hand is a bucket of water. There are different ways that you can caulk. Some people will spray water with a spray bottle on what they're going to caulk, and it helps the cleanup process. I'll just take my hands, dunk it in the water, and then when I smooth it over, it helps this caulk to not stick to the things that I don't want it to stick to, like the actual trim and the ceiling piece. I'm just smoothing it all out with my finger. And caulk, like paint, is not too bad to work with. And if you make a little mistake or you see something that you missed, after it dries, just come back, add some more caulk to it. If I get any of this stuff on my fingers, like I have here, I'll just dab it in these nail holes. So any excess caulk that I have on my fingers that I'm not really using where I'm working, I'll come through and dab it in these nail holes. And this process here is pretty easy. Dab it on the nail hole, rub it around, it'll fill in that nail hole. And then once you smear it around, don't leave it lumpy, because you'll see that after you paint it. But if you just smear it around and you have a little bit of the caulk color, it's not going to matter because you're going to paint this anyway. And this caulk is white, but even if you're painting these columns blue or brown or purple or tan or whatever color you're going to paint them, it would still hide that caulk. It's going to paint over it. Now I do have a couple of little spots where I need a little more caulk. So I'm going to touch those up right quick here. And then I'm going to come on down to this other side, do the same thing, filling that thing up. And then come through with my finger. They also make tools that you can use to caulk, which is kind of crazy to me. A finger usually works, and instead of spending, I don't even know how much those tools cost, $10, $15, $20 for a tool, what you can do, which I used on a column the other day, just use a piece of your scrap piece of wood or a shim or something that's flat and straight, and you can stick that against this trim, run it across, and get all of that caulk to be smooth across there. Biggest thing is just don't leave any of this caulk on the areas that you don't need it. Don't leave it all gunked up. Smear it around and make it flat. That way you don't see it when you paint. This tube of caulk is gone, so we'll undo it. We'll grab another tube. For some of you who may not have caulked before or don't know how to use a caulk gun, it's not too hard. You've got this rod here to where one way, if the rod is up like this and you go to squeeze it, you see that little plunger? That little plunger starts moving, and that is what's going to push the back of this caulk tube. It'll push it forward, which makes the caulk come out. And as you're pushing it, it's putting pressure on that caulk tube. So when you get done applying pressure and you're done with your caulk, you don't need any more caulk, push this release button here in the back, and that'll release the pressure. So you can also pull the rod back, twist it this way. It'll go. Some of these caulk guns are different, where if you spin this rod, it'll stop applying pressure. But on this one, push this piece in the back and you can pull it. When you cut your caulk, there's multiple ways to cut the caulk. There's actually a spout cutter on the caulk gun. Most caulk guns have a spout cutter. I just take my razor knife. The first hole that I make is going to be pretty small. I just cut it off at an angle, trim away any little scrap pieces, and it looks like that. I find that a razor knife makes a much cleaner cut, makes a better cut than the spout cutter does, so I use a razor knife. And the reason I cut such a small hole is because when I get done using this caulk, I may have half a tube left. So when I go to use it again, I can cut just a slightly bigger hole to get that dried caulk out of the tip, and then I can use it again. If you start way down here with a big ass hole, and then you need to use it again, you have to cut an even bigger hole, or you'll have to take a screw or take this little rod right here. This rod pops out and you stick it down into the tube and you can clear the tube out. There's also some caulks that have a little foil piece of paper down here at the end of this tube that you would need to use this rod to stick down in there and puncture that little piece of foil. These don't have it though. So once you cut the tip, you're good to go. And then you just insert it the bottom first like this. Slide it in. Got a little play to it. Push that rod up. And once you squeeze this trigger, you're going to have caulk coming out. Now all I'm going to do for about 20 minutes is just apply caulk everywhere I have a gap. So around all of this trim and every one of these nail holes, all the little joints, I'm going to apply caulk. I'm trying to keep my hands in the bucket every now and then to keep them wet, to smear this caulk around. It makes it easier. And you just want to fill in all the gaps and holes. If you get some extra on your finger, move on to another spot that you need caulk and stick that caulk in there. Easy enough. So as I'm working on this side, if I have extra caulk, which I usually do, I try not to over caulk, but I'll usually have extra caulk. I'll take it off my finger and I'll go to this next side and I'll put it in there. And once I have all the caulk that I've applied smeared around, I'll stick my hand back in my bucket, clean the caulk off. Now my hands are wet and I'll go back, and I'll go back where I just caulked and I'll wipe and get the excess off from around the trim. And you don't want too much water because you'll wash away the caulk that you're trying to get to stick in these holes. So don't pull the caulk out. Some people use a rag or a sponge. You can use that, but be careful with it because you can pull out all the caulk that you just put in by using too much water. It'll just pull it all out. So you don't need that much water. Go around all four sides doing the same thing. Fill in all your gaps, all your joints where you mitered everything. You're going to have gaps. Fill them in. Just fill it in where everything comes together. This will help everything stick together, but the biggest thing is it will help hide those gaps when you go to paint over it. Now, I'm no professional carpenter or construction guy or any of that kind of stuff, but you can still make it look good, even if you have little mistakes. So I'm going to keep going around this, caulking everything, and then once I'm done caulking, we will prepare for paint or be ready to paint. Yes. Now that I've got this top section that I needed the ladder for done, What I'll do is I'll go down a little bit, as you can see here on the sides. I'll go down about halfway, where it's easy for me to reach it by just standing here. And this way, I can now do this part just standing up. So I'll get a little water on my hands for this caulk. And then we're gonna just caulk this gap in between here going down. And depending on the size of your gap, that kind of determines how much caulk you need to apply. These gaps aren't very big. They shouldn't be very big. So we don't need much caulk. And we'll just run it down. Don't do too big of an area because the caulk will start to dry before you get time to clean it all off. So do just enough that you can wipe it all up and clean it up in time. And again, if you have any more caulk on your hands, go back, fill in any little spots that you may have. Again, fill in your little nail holes. You can't take too much time doing this because if you do, it'll start to dry and it's a pain to get off. So you want to just kind of move quickly. Get all the caulk there. Go ahead and take your hand, wipe it again. Get it all off of that trim. Smooth it out on your Hardie. Rinse your hands off in your bucket, and then you can wipe off your trim. Get all that caulk off of there. Wipe this down again to smear it around. Just want to smooth it out. So just go back over everything you just did with your hands being damp. Smear everything around, make sure it looks good. And then let it dry. I'm going to go ahead and do that for all four sides. What I'll do on this side is I'll go ahead and get everything down to the bottom. So I'll get all of that caulked, the rest of the holes on all four sides. And after that's done, let it dry, and then we can paint all of these columns.